Hi, I'm Chuck Olenek. I'm a reenactor. That means I try to bring the past to life. I did that for 36 years in the classroom, but I'm also a member of historical reenactment organizations. And what I'm doing right now is a very pretentious sounding Mission Odyssey, where I am traveling to every single mission, Estancia, and Presidio in Alta California, and I'm doing it in garb. And this is to bring the past to life, to preserve landmarks, and quite frankly, I'm having fun doing it. And what I'm engaged in right now is I'm trying to do a video for each place, but there was a lot of material for Mission San Juan Capistrano, so this is going to be the third video for that particular mission, and I hope you'll stick with me on this journey. Spain was already rewarding former soldiers with land grants. This process is going to speed up after Mexican independence in 1821. Starting around 1819 and through the 1820s and 1830s, you're going to see a decline in this particular mission. And part of that had to do with disease thinning the herds. You also had issues with the crops. Droughts and floods also took their toll, and disillusion Juaneño started to drift away from the mission. You also had the greed of Spanish settlers, and they really wanted the land. And in 1824, the governor issued a statement that the Indians no longer had to follow the direction of the Padres, and discipline just pretty much blew up at that point. Jose Antonio Yorba was given one of the very first land grants, Rancho Santiago de Santa Ana. This is going to be the old soldier who defended the mission from Bouchard. He's buried at the mission. In 1833, the lands were secularized. In 1834, the mission lands of Mission San Juan Capistrano were seized. It turned into sort of an estate sale. The value of buildings, the chapel, furnishings, tools and implements, contents of the chapel, library holdings were all duly noted. 1834, Ranchos Cañón de Santa Ana and Las Bolsas were created. The genie is now out of the bottle. Between 1837 and 1842, a number of former soldiers were rewarded with large amounts of land. Ranchos were created: Boca de la Playa, Cañada de los Alisos, La Bolsa Chica, Lomas de Santiago, Mission Viejo, which was also called La Paz, Miguel, San Juan Cajon de Santa Ana, and Rancho San Joaquin. And lastly, the Trabuco Rancho. So, the Native Americans have been told, you don't need to listen to the Padres. Okay? So there's that tension. You also have people who wish to become landowners eyeing the lands which were supposed to be held in trust for the various mission Indians. And around San Juan Capistrano, that would be the Juaneño. And instead of creating an Indian pueblo, creating ranches that the Native Americans would run, what is happening is these various veterans and wealthy folk, are getting the land. They're getting this reward. And the mission is still going to continue very doggedly running cattle in various places, including on the Trabuco. That's going to happen until about 1841. Now, Don Santiago Arguello, the one who was responsible for the defense of Mission San Juan Capistrano against the pirate Bouchard, in 1841, he's going to be given the 8,800 acres of the Trabuco, and that's going to become his rancho. When you look at this land, see wealth. Those Spanish soldiers who ended up retiring and were rewarded with property, they're turning around, they're raising cattle, they're making money, but they're also supporting the missions. But now it's going to turn into making money for themselves. And by the way, they're not really raising the cattle. They're having the various former mission Indians do it for them. And this is going to range far and wide. Behind me, that's a California dollar. 20 of the 21 missions were raising cattle. Those 20 each had their own distinctive brands. The missions and the ranchos and the estancias, they had been raising cattle, they had been tanning hides and dealing in the trade of hides. So the Spanish had been doing this for a while. But this is going to continue after secularization. And when Richard Henry Dana wrote his autobiographical book, 2 Years Before the Mast, he described the trade, he described stopping at Mission San Juan Capistrano and loading the hides onto the ships, because this was a huge industry. Once Mexico wiped out the trade restrictions, the hide trade grew dramatically. The Yankee traders from Boston took over. Many of the hides were processed directly at the missions. This area was used to scrape the hides and stretch them out, and along here we have a channel that is going to carry away the various ickies that come away from the hides. And over here we have the place where the California banknotes or California dollars are born. These are the tanning vats, and they're going to be using tannic acid to treat the hides. And this is what Dana was writing about in 2 Years Before the Mast. These are the tanning vats at Mission Santa Barbara. Even though Mission San Juan Capistrano had its own tanning vats and its own way of processing the hides from the cattle, a lot of the ranchos are going to be establishing their own. And you'll find them all over the place. And maybe the reason for doing that is it might have been easier to just transport the finished hides. This hide industry is spreading far and wide. I'm at the site of the Serrano Adobe, or one of the Serrano Adobes. It's named for a settler, not the Native Americans. And Don Serrano ended up having the local Luiseno, under his direction, that's the kindest way to phrase it, build these vats. Let's see if I can do that. I can, and there it is. That's a reconstructed tanning vat that would have been filled with tannic acid, and hides would have been placed in it. And that sort of sets up a situation of, well, is it easier to raise the cattle and drive them towards the missions, or would it be easier to slaughter the cattle, tan the hides, and move the hides out for profit. And this kind of tells me that they were doing it that way, because Mission San Juan Capistrano is the closest of the missions, and it's about 48 miles away. Mission San Luis Rey, it's going to be a bit further. And even though these were built by Luiseños, some Luiseños were associated with Mission San Juan Capistrano. El Embarcadero is down here. This was where the hides were loaded from Mission San Juan Capistrano and the ranchos during the height of the hide trade, which lasted like from 1830 to about 1840. Getting the hides to the Embarcadero was not easy. It often involved flinging the hides over a cliff, and sometimes sailors had to go down on ropes and dislodge the hides in order to carry them out to the ships. By the way, not all of the sea trade was legal. There was a lot of smuggling going on. There was a very illicit trade, at least in Spanish times, of seal pelts and otter, and also in leather hides. Because remember, the people that were dependent upon the Spanish, they depended upon that one supply ship a year. So they kind of bent the rules a bit. One of the things that the Spanish had sought to do to curb smuggling, they wanted to take advantage of the islands, either the Channel Islands or Catalina, and establish a mission or two there, because they felt this would, one, put some land to use, and also it would kind of discourage the smugglers. Unfortunately, when they visited Catalina, the local Tongva caught the measles, wiped a bunch of them out, and the Spanish then felt, hey, let's move these guys. But then they looked at Catalina itself, and they said, ooh, there's not really a lot of water here, there aren't a lot of resources, okay, it's not worth building a mission. Of course, the odd part is later a rancho was established there. Go figure. Once the market in hides fell apart, conditions worsened. A smallpox epidemic wiped out many Juaneño. The stone church collapsed some more. The Sarah Church was being used as a granary and storeroom. And even though President Lincoln returned 44 acres of mission grounds to the church, the buildings were still falling apart. And that continued until about 1900, when the Landmarks Club of Southern California stepped in. Also, the arrival of Father John O'Sullivan in 1910 helped resurrect the mission. So, 3 missions down, 3 Estancias down, 1 Presidio down, 1 old dam down. And now I am driving checking my handy dandy cheat sheet, the 58.4 miles from San Juan Capistrano up to Mission San Gabriel Archangel. I hope you'll stick with me on this.